Hi, and welcome to this tutorial where I'm going to go through the secondary grading clips that are available for you to work on today. So first thing I'm going to do is go to media, and I'm going to go to my Chrome downloads and secondary grading clips, and there we are. Those are the clips that you should be able to download for today's exercises. So I'm going to select all of those and I'm going to drop them into my media pool. Okay. So yeah, okay, so I'd already had my project set up, so it's just come up with a little warning to say, hey, the clips have a different frame rate than my project. Do you want to change the project? Yeah, of course, go for it, change it. There we go. So hopefully that all matches. I'm going to go to edit next. So again, this is just an example where we're quickly looking at grading. So I'm just going to select all those clips. I'm not going to cut them up or anything. I'm just going to drop them onto my timeline. Having done that, I would say that, let's just zoom out slightly, that those two clips probably make sense going together. Don't worry too much about the order. It's not a big deal. We'll just kind of jump through the clips as they are. Okay, so I probably won't go through them in order anyway. It's not like a scene that makes sense. It's all a range of different clips. But yeah, just as long as you've got all of these clips, we can have a look through. Okay, so I'm going to go to color, press my color tab, and here we are. Now I can kind of jump through and color grade all of these clips. So first thing we need to do, just like anything else, any other set of footage we'd work on, tonal range. Okay, so if you remember, we want to bring up our scopes, which you can do by right clicking and saying show scopes. I've already got mine up. Here they are. So if you look at a lot of these images, you can see it's not really hitting the black, it's not hitting the whites. And by the way, in here, so you might look at this and say, well, that looks black. Actually, once you've done the tonal range, you'll find then you'll notice that that truly is black. So right now it's actually a very, very dark gray. In a sense, it's not really a I mean, I say that, I mean, well, maybe not dark gray, but it's just like it's an off black. It is not black, but once you set it to the black value, you will notice that. And so yeah, so with a lot of these images, not all, this one you can see is definitely fully using that range already. If anything, yeah, I think it's fine, that one is going across and so on. But you can see, like I said, with a few, we can certainly just make some adjustments. So that's what I'm going to start by doing. I'm going to do tonal range adjustments. I'm not going to do that in this video. If you need to know how to do tonal range, obviously check the video that I created that does that. So I'll see you in a second once I've done all the tonal ranges for these clips. Hi, okay, so I'm back. I've just worked through the clips and just quickly adjusted their tonal ranges to kind of get them where I think they should be. So I mentioned this clip just a second ago. So if we go back to that and select the node and press Control D, you can hopefully see as I turn it off and on, you know, there is a slight difference between sort of the value of black that it had originally versus the value of black it has now, which looks obviously hopefully a lot deeper. Okay, so those are kind of adjustments I made. What's also done as well, though, is brought out some of the issues with the colors a bit more here. Yes, it's a bit more washed out, but we can really see the blue now, because remember, when you adjust tonal range, guess what you do? There's the original image, there's the new one. You increase the saturation of colors. So that's something else to just bear in mind. So notice that with, say, this one. Look at the image. So this is what I meant about earlier about you need to, I've mentioned in a previous tutorial, you need to look not just at the image, but you need to look at the scopes. You know, you need to rely on all three together. So I'm looking at that image. It has a lot of grass in it. It's even got these green containers. And yet, if I look in here, it's very little green, but there's a lot sort of yellows and reds. Now, there are some strong reds. Okay, fair enough. But I'm not, you know, there shouldn't really be this much yellow. But then I look at it and it's a case of, well, you know, it's obviously not color balanced correctly. So just bear that in mind as well, that we've done a tonal range there, but we'd probably want to go add node serial, okay, and do a fix on that as well. Again, I think we looked at last time as well. You have the ability to just select a point and do a click, and that select something that should be white. So that is a white balance selection tool, and that now looks a lot better. Yes, it's still overall, actually, it's not shifted it much, but yeah, if we turn that off, look how yellow that looked originally versus now. So just bear that in mind. There might be some additional stuff you need to do with some of these clips. But there we go, we're done. So let's start doing some grading. So we're going to start with, secondary grading this time around. So we're going to use the secondary tools, and what you'll find is there's sort of little buttons around. In fact, let me just move this out of the way for now. So what you'll find is with all these controls here, so this is like a panel, and you've got like a bunch of controls here which you can do correction based on, like a color match based on a chip chart basically. So somebody can hold a chart with these colors up and you can kind of match them up and so on. So there's a few options and things like that on here, but we generally stick with the the color wheels. Notice around here you've got the same thing. You've got a whole bunch of panels. You've got curves, which we haven't looked at yet, but you've got the qualify tool, which we'll look at as well, and you've got these power windows and so on. You've got tracking built in as well, okay, blur and so on options, and it sort of goes through. But these three here, these first three, your curves, your qualifier, and your power windows, are your secondary grading tools. So we're going to have a look at these three, okay. In this tutorial we'll just look at the power windows, and then I'll set up individual tutorials for the others. So let's go with this now. By the way, with this one I didn't do the tonal range yet, and the reason I didn't do that is because I noticed that you can see again it's a very bright image, but it has no blacks in there. You might not want it, maybe you want it to have that bit of washed out look, but I would say I'd like some of these shadowy areas to be black and not just a light grey. So I'm going to pull that down. So I'm quickly just setting up the tonal range, which like I said we should have done for the other images in the tutorial already anyway. But the reason I didn't do it with this is because by the time you pull this down, you can see the whole image becomes very dark. It's completely changed the look of the original image. So if you look at that, yeah, it feels like such a nice bright sort of sunny day, and then it sort of looks like that completely changed, and that might not be the intent that I wanted. So I'm going to just pull that up a bit. Okay, so I'm going to use the mid-tones to kind of raise that to where I feel works. So still want a little bit of darkness there, so I'm just pulling it down a bit more. But overall I'm trying to, and maybe I don't want, actually you can see it's the left hand side that's hitting the blacks, and that's all this bit here. Maybe I just don't want that to be black then in that case. So let's just pull it up just so it's off slightly, but it's still a little bit, the tonal range has improved from what it was originally, but it's not super duper dark. Okay, so there we go. So by the way, if I play this, you'll see it is a moving image as well. Okay, so the camera is kind of going across there. Okay, so let's see what we can do. So this is where, by the way, a second monitor comes in really handy. So we're going to use the secondary controls, which are over here. So I'm going to have to move my scope. So I'm just going to move them down to here, so you guys can at least keep an eye on the waveform. But my vector scope I'll be looking at as well. It's just I'm seeing it on a second screen. If we need it, I'll pull it back in. So yeah, so like I said, let's start with our power windows, which are basically masks. Okay, that's what a power window is. So if you've used masks before, say in compositing for example, you'll be familiar with them. They do work slightly different in here, and I'll show you how. Now firstly, if you apply a mask, and I'll stop calling it that, sorry, I'll call it a power window, which is what, like I said, it's referred to in this software. If you do use a power window, it's going to then take whichever grades you create using your controls, and they'll only work inside that window. So in other words, if I click on that shape, notice, if you can tell very much, but the grade, the tonal range I just applied, if you can see it, is only occurring inside the shape. In fact, if you look on the right here, you can see on your node, you can see it's showing that there's the shape, so the grade is only in there, nothing outside it. So we don't want that. So I'm going to just deselect that. Oh, okay, so we've done our tonal range here. We want to keep that. So we have to right click, add node, add serial node. There we go. So we've got a brand new node with no grade on it so far, and that is where we will add our power window. Okay, so there's nothing happening inside the window yet. We haven't done a grade, but you'll notice now if I was to kind of say go really purple or something like that, yeah, it only exists inside the power window. Okay, so how are we going to work with this? Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this. Actually, I'd say the key thing is when you're grading, start by knowing what you're trying to do. Okay, so I should probably just explain what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use this to just add a little bit more depth to the like even with the tonal range adjustment, what I'm finding is this image just, like I said, looks a bit flat overall. I just want to add a bit of color to it. I want to give the sky a bit of depth, and I want to give the water some as well. So I want to stylize it a little bit too. So I'm gonna use this to change the color of the sky, okay, or at least add a bit of a gradient to the sky. So it's not to say we couldn't try that with just like primary grading, but you'd find it be very difficult. So a primary grade, which we've already looked at, is when you adjust these controls, and technically they're affecting every part of the image. even if they're only affecting it slightly. So a lift, for example, will really affect the bottom, but if you pull it enough, it will start to pull the top down as well. So primary grades affect the whole image. With the secondary grades, you only affect part of the image. So that's what's going to happen now. Only what's inside the shape will be affected. Hence, it says secondary grade. So I'm going to pull this shape here. And by the way, notice you've got these little blue dots or circles with blue outline. So they allow you to move or adjust the shape. So if I click that, it will allow me to reshape the power window there. And there's one in the center. If I click that, it allows me to rotate it. Okay. And by the way, you can have other shapes as well, like a circle. You can use a line to draw shapes, or a curved straight line or curved lines. And that one will allow you, I think to, it's a gradient option. Okay. But yeah, we're just going to use this. This will work fine. So this is where the power windows differ slightly from masks in, say, a compositor. With a mask, when you're doing a grade, you have to be very precise about exactly what you select. So if I was doing a sky selection as part of a composite, chances are I'd have to remove the entire sky, right? Whereas with this, we don't need to do that. We don't need our shape to be perfectly over or around each building. And I'll sort of show you why. So we've got that over the general video where the sky is, and now I can go in and grade, and I can see the sky obviously is in the brighter area, so I'm going to use my gain controls. Okay, I'm going to move it more towards the yellowy kind of orange color here. Okay, now I'm purposely pulling it probably a bit further than I'd want to, just to make it obvious that I'm making those changes, and you can see that. Now, by the way, it can be a bit difficult to see, where it ends and things because we've got the shape in the way. So remember, this is a power window. So if you look down here on your left, you've got a little drop down which has the same icon as our power window there. So if I click on that, these are the things I can see, and I can just turn it off. Turn it off and you can see it. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but there's like a solid line running across. If I pull this too far, just to show you, there you go, you can see there is a solid line. Like I said, obviously I don't want it to be that strong. So anyway, I'm going to go back, give this that sort of warmish look. But obviously that line looks ridiculous. That's not something I want. So I'm going to go back, turn my power window on. So we looked at the circles with the blue outline. Notice there's a circle with a red outline as well. That is your feather. So if I click that and pull that down, okay, and I can feather the sides, but there's no point because obviously that's off the video. But if I pull that down a bit, and let's pull this down a bit further here as well, what you'll find is if we turn that off, okay, now the color has a feather attached, it will fall off, and that actually works quite well. So you can see the orange color that I put in the sky is now also in the water, but it kind of makes sense. Like if you with color, it's not the same as what we were trying to do with compositing. If you have light of a certain color, it's going to fall off. Like the buildings have the same color now as the sky, but again, that makes sense. We would expect that, and so we're able to have that color. Like I said, it slightly fall off as it moves across, but it looks like a little bit more believable because of that. So I'm going to go back to that power window. I'm going to slightly rotate it as well because it looks like it's not entirely level. So there we go. So that's kind of how we can work on that. And you can see here, by the way, as well, in your node, it actually shows you a big grey outline. It's like slightly soft to show you that it's got a feather on it, and only the selection there is being affected. If you need to see it a bit clearer, you can click this little sort of wand type icon called highlight button, and it will just show you what you've selected and what you haven't. And that can be quite helpful. Notice as well, press the highlight button, the waveform changes to only show, and so does a vector scope, although I don't know how much that'll change on there. Yeah, there you go. So you can see when you do the highlight, these only show you what you can see, which is great because it kind of helps us understand our selection and what we've actually got in the image. Okay, so yeah, we've done that. Great. Now if I want to do the water a little bit as well, I guess I could create another node and do another shape, but actually I don't need to because I've already got a shape that's selecting that part. I just want to do the opposite. So when I go back to my node here, I can right click and I can add another node, but this time rather than adding a serial node, I'm going to add an outside node. So we click outside node, okay, and now you can see it's done the opposite. So this new node is a selection that is the exact opposite of the previous one. Okay, there we go. In fact, what it is basically just using the same shape, but this time the grading that we do here will apply to outside the node, hence why it was called an outside node. Sorry, outside the mask, power window. Okay, going all over the place with my terms. So yeah, so this grades inside our power window, this grades outside it. So now again, I could do that selection and just see where it is. And actually, you can see it's across the whole range. And I think that's because of obviously the shine, the reflection of the sunlight there. But I'm really only interested in that bit, which is down here. So it's going to be the lift and the gamma that I want to affect. And so I'm going to just move these slightly more towards the green, and just see if I can sort of change that value a bit. And I am doing it, and I can see that. I hope it sort of is as obvious in the video. If I undo that for a second, you can see, there you go. Yeah, what the water looked like originally and sort of what it looks like now. So I can sort of start to adjust that. And if we kind of go through and we'll just sort of play that, and you'll see it sort of, again, like I said, that, you know, the light sort of falls off fine, and that works. Okay. So that is a quick introduction to masks and sorry, power windows and how they can be utilized. So obviously there's a whole range of clips, and there'll be other ones where you can use these. So feel free to give them a go. Okay.